Hello. So the focus of this video is like I told earlier that we would focus on a ethics approach that is required for ethics for UPSC civil services. The thing is that I would try to cover different aspects. First, that why do we usually ignore the ethics and what should be the approach and how should we approach the theoretical aspect, and then we will also what is the actually needed that you need to do for scoring well in an ethics paper. The first thing is that we usually ignore ethics because it seems quite easy if you go for the some different whatever the definition, the specific keywords that are mentioned in UPSC syllabus. So it seems like obvious and it could be handled. And even when you see the questions prima facie, it seems that you would be able to handle it. Apart from a GS answer, you need to some backup, you need to some information, there's some factual knowledges, but ethics seems like it could be handled even with a general understanding of a society and the ethical dimensions. But usually it is not a case because what happens that when you start writing a generalized answer, you will lose the pay. Maybe you will start deviating, or it would be a little bit distracting that you are not pointing and you are basically beating around the bush. So that is the one thing. So first thing that I would say, don't take ethics lightly because it is a scoring subject. Your optional ethics and essay. These are the things that provides you the additional advantage that you do, because otherwise in other GS, if you are doing well and preparing well, that it is there is a sort of a saturation in those GS subjects. But this and when you start practicing on essay, ethics, and optional, that sort of provides an additional advantage that decides what would the result. So next thing is that how should we approach the ethics? So I think that there's a two there we should divide our approach in a two-step process. Firstly, try to cover the theoretical portion because it is a very because it will not take too much time. I think it does not take even more than 14 days. If you what you need to cover in the theoretical, first aspect that you need to cover is try to ensure that you know the all the you have a proper understanding of all the definitions related to the keywords that are mentioned in the UPSC syllabus, like all the objectivity, rationality, non-partisanship, partisanships, whatever words that are mentioned there. Try to have an objective and try to have a definitional and proper foundational understanding of those words, and those understanding should be in your own words instead of having some bookish understanding of it. That will not help because you need to ensure that you don't do rote learning in ethics. That is the one thing. And secondly, you have a comfortable understanding of the keywords that are needed. Now, the second thing, when you are done with the theoretical portion, it does not take too much time, because even if you take some standards books like a lexicon, and even if you do some sort of a net surfing and start analyzing what is the meaning of these words and the differential meaning of it, you should be able to differentiate between the two words, the partisanship, neutrality, objectivity, how they are different, integrities, how it is sort of differentiating from honesty, and all these things. So that understanding should be there, and try to write down your own definitions of it. But the task basically starts from here. It does not end here. What we usually do, we just cover up these theoretical portion and understand that ethics is done. It is not done. It has not even basically started properly, because now you have to work on the differential impact that you want to make in ethics paper, and that could be ensured by regular practicing of the ethics answer. That makes a difference, because what we do usually, if you see that one approach is that you will cover the theoretical portion. Even some people do it, they start doing the rote learning of the different scholars name, and learning about the different jargons which are not even understandable properly. So don't do that. It is not needed. And because if you start analyzing the toppers copies, they basically try to connect very real life examples, like the Shruti Sharma ma'am's copy. It is quite impressive, and you can, if you go through it, uh, she basically mentions very practical examples that are usually mentioned in the newspaper or somewhere. You must have seen it, but it shows that you have understanding and you are able to connect the real life things with the theoretical portion. That basically reflects that you have prepared things and you have understanding of these things. Now, the how should we approach it? That first, if you have sort of completed the theoretical portion, then you can download the toppers copies from different coaching portals, and now start attempting those answers and try to compare that what do you write and what they write. Apart from that, you will also be able to notice that they must be mentioning some important examples, and they have one pattern of writing an answer. So try to learn that pattern, and try to basically try to do that. If you are getting some important examples, then collect those examples. But one important thing about ethics question paper is there is a differential approach within the paper, because it is not a monotonous that you will write the intro and all these things, because the questions are different. There is in sort of a case study portion, there is a theoretical portion, and even within the theoretical portion there are questions which are statement based, the quote based questions that require a sort of different approach, and other questions which basically ask the direct theoretical question, like what is the some questions related to what non-partisanship and what does it mean, and even the constitutional morality, the different perspective they could ask. So you need to have a differential approach for these sort of questions. And usually we find case study quite easy, and we when we even do the practice, we start focusing only on the case studies, because these are quite easy, because case studies questions are in itself are structured. They will ask you the merits, demerits, and what would you approach. But in the theoretical portion, which is sort of scoring, because a lot of people don't focus on there. So if you want to have an additional advantage, then try to work on that portion. Apart from that, in that theoretical, the first 13 and 14 question that we get, first I think 11 or 12 questions, that whatever the questions, try to ensure that you are able, you could have a proper command on that portion as well. And how it could be ensured, like for the theoretical portion, you need to have an approach like in GS, because you need to have a diversity in the perspective, depending on what sort of question is. But the usual approach should be that, like in GS, there is an administrative perspective, international perspective, scientific perspective, with that, and the governance perspective. So that approach should be there. But the example should not be sort of proper GS thing. Try to have an example which are related to society. We find that it should be a little bit different. And where you could find that example, you would be able to find those examples in the topper copies. That is a one big better source of approaching the ethics. Now for the quote-based question, there is also a different approach, because in quote-based, try to understand and take the quote-based question as a sort of a mini essay. Like in an essay we do now, we provide some sort of catchy phrase first, then we try to define the quotes, and then we try to also have a counter argument related to the quote that could be possible. Then we support that, then we sort of support, provide 2 3 points in the support of it, then argument oppose of it, then conclude it. So the essay you do it for a 10 12 pages, now you have to finish it off and compress it in the 2 pages max that we have. So that is the approach should be needed for the code-based question. That could come when you start practicing. When you start noticing it, that the code-based questions will require effort, because you will not, otherwise what you will do, you would start just explaining the codes and explain the codes and mention one of the example. But the approach is that you should also think about the counter arguments that could be possible. So that is the approach for a course-based question. So always remember there is a differential approach within the ethics paper that is needed. And even now we are noticing, even in the case studies, there is a differential approach. Some case studies will directly ask for a structured thing, and there are also case studies which ask your own opinion and what will the futuristic thing sort of things. So keep that thing also in mind. Now, one more thing that I want to address is how to ensure that you could have a better value addition. And that value addition aspects come when you start when we start collecting those embellishments that you need. That could be the embellishment. By embellishment, I mean that you start collecting the important examples, important quotes that you can cover, important even the books which are prominent, and even the documentaries. Start collecting those things, even the important incidents that happen around the news. Somebody like during the Oscar, somebody's left someone. Even now, the approach of a Trump administration, that could be considered that. So you start collecting those examples and start thinking from when we read the newspaper. There is one general studies GS approach that we have. But also when you read the newspaper, try to have one dimension of ethical perspective. Is there an ethical dimension as well in this whole incident? So that will help you, and you would be start developing, and the effort will also be less, because when you are covering the GS, you will also get it, because even when we read the history, there are a lot of examples which have ethical perspectives. Even the constitution have there's a proper word, the constitutional morality, ethics, ecological perspective, that also have an ethical perspective. So all the GS have ethical dimension in itself, and when you start analyzing it, you start putting your answer, that will make a difference. but you need to put an effort and start collecting those examples. Then only it will happen. Otherwise, it will be difficult. Now, the one more thing that you need to be cognizant that ethics question paper is lengthy because it is around I think around 14 questions, but we need to analyze each questions because apart from GS that there is some monotonous tone in GS answers that we need to challenge these things, and we also have practiced so much in GS that a lot of them comes easy to ourselves. But in ethics, we always need to put an extra effort to think about the dimension because questions are new, and you cannot have an sort of already built up tone for ethics answer. You need to innovate little bit and find while attempting the answers. So that itself takes time during the when we attempt during the mains. So that is the one thing. Now what you can do and be cognizant about, start analyzing where you take too much time. Do you take too much time in the case studies? Do you take too much time on the theoretical portion, and then start attempting the portion which are easier to start attempt because there is a differing opinion regarding it. So I can only say what I used to do. I used to attempt the case study portion first because it comes quite easy, and so that is the one thing. And the reason for me to attempt the case studies is because if I put the case studies at the end, start attempting at the end, because at the end, if I have around suppose 11 minutes and I have two case studies, I would not able to understand the case studies if I have that much less time and under that pressure conditions. I would not able to decipher the what case studies is trying to convey. So that's why I keep the case studies at the first. I would attempt them first. And secondly, these are already structured thing and they are already asking what you need to attempt. So it is quite easy to handle the case studies. And one more reason that I've already told, it is easy to decipher the questions when you are in the under pressure situation at the end of the when you attempt the mains and when the time is closer. So that is the one thing. So apart from that, in the practice question, where should we practice? So one thing, be very cautious. Don't take coaching answers as a standard answer. They are AI created answer or whatever the answers. These are the answers that are created under a lot of they have utilized a lot of sources. They are not in the panic mode or the time structure situation. So that is not a condition for them. So better thing is that when you are attempting and looking for the standard answer, try to compare your answer with the proper copies. And so that would be the better source. And if you start understanding that, that is the better approach. How are they basically approaching even during the pressure situations? The pressure situation, I mean the time limitation thing, because the quality and quantity, both things need to be balanced because and quality do get compromised when we have a limited time. So even after that, you can see that the value addition that we must be doing for the whole year or working on at the different examples, case studies, code that start helping you at the time because otherwise you will not be able to think. Yes, okay. So that is the issue with the ethics. And so I think I should stop here. I would try to cover one few more things I think that are important for ethics in the next video. And if you have any specific questions, then you can just put it and tell me. Then either directly message me or just put it in the comment box. Okay. So I think it. And apart from that, then I will make a video on the geographical perspective and how I was approaching geography. Okay. Thanks.